Right. Hey guys, Robbie here from CFSB Nutrition at CrossFit South Bend. Today I'm here with Sabrina. Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about Sabrina's story. Sabrina lost 20 pounds in the course of nutrition coaching with us, but Sabrina has a really interesting story where she's actually lost pretty close to 100 pounds just in the space of a little over a year. So Sabrina, first of all, tell us a bit about what was eating like for you, and tell us a little bit about your own weight loss journey prior to starting nutrition coaching.
So before I actually started losing weight, I was really bad about eating out all of the time. I felt like I didn't have time to cook for myself. I'm a graduate student, and it's constantly, oh, you need to be working, and it easily becomes 60-hour weeks where you just want to go to the closest thing and get food. When I decided to start losing weight, I purposely started doing meal prep where I was trying to make things in bulk and be able to eat them and try to space out the calories. And it just became a matter of taking the weekends and forcing myself to plan.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Tell people a bit about the journey of doing one-on-one nutrition coaching. So you were already doing a really good job on your own of like eating well, and then we just tweaked some stuff. So tell people about like month 1 where we were tweaking, and then month 2 with the Whole30. Just tell us about the journey. What was that like for you?
I really liked it because the reason I wanted to do the nutrition coaching is I wanted to be able to actually be able to do this myself later on when I unfortunately will eventually have to move away from here because I'll finish graduate school. So for me, I really liked it because it was, okay, let's start by just slowly scaling back. And for me, the slowly scaling back, thankfully, because a lot of it, since I did meal prep, it was really easy for me to just go, okay, so when I meal prep for this week, I'm just not going to use that, or I'm going to find a substitute that fits the bill. And it wound up being much easier than I thought in that first month.
Awesome. How was the Whole30?
My biggest problem, and it's still my problem now, is I really, really crave chocolate. It's been something that has been... Chocolate and sweets are an essential part of my family.
Right.
So that's really the only thing I still wanted while I was on the Whole30, and for the most part, my sugar cravings or any sweets cravings I had, I could cover with just having fruit. But it was not that bad. It was really nice finding substitutes for things like being able to make cut sweet potatoes into slabs and use that as toast instead of having bread. The alternatives were actually really cool to find.
Awesome. So like you mentioned, you're a grad student, and having been a grad student myself, I know that, schedules are crazy, and how did you find doing all this in the context of that? What would you say to someone who is themselves a grad student about like making this work in your life?
Crock pots are really helpful.
Yeah.
Instant pots are really helpful. Meal prep. One of the hardest things to do, especially if you're a single person, is make a meal for one person. So don't make a meal for one person. Make a meal for 3 or 4 people and then use that as leftovers. That's how I was able to keep myself from... There's literally a Taco Bell in the building across from my office. I have not been there in months. I'm really happy about that fact. But it was what kept me... It was doing that on, Saturday and Sunday and using my weekends to actually just prepare for the actual work week.
Right.
Was what was so important to me. And you as a graduate student should be able to do that too, even if you're, a science major like me where you constantly have to go into the lab because you have experiments running all of the time. You can find that time. You are not actually working 24/7 even though it feels like it.
Right. I think that's a very good way to put it. One of the things we like to talk about with our program is the idea of, Whole30 and non-scale victories. So can you tell us anything about like differences in energy, craving, mood, things like that, but also tell us about your recent gymnastics accomplishments.
Oh, yeah. So in terms of the energy and cravings and mood, I actually have found I think I do have better energy throughout the day. One of the things and one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because I knew I had bread almost every day for breakfast. And that's part of why I say that with the sweet potato is I don't want bread anymore. I in fact made a burger and used sweet potato for the buns today, so I don't see a need to actually have bread anymore, and I don't particularly crave things, or if I do crave things, I can find a way to make them that cuts out some of the quote unquote bad foods or the foods you want to avoid a little bit, especially because for me doing meal prep the way I do, if I don't do that, that means that food's going to pervade 3 or 4 meals for me. In terms of gymnastics accomplishments, since I started the nutrition coaching, I was able to get toes to bar and get a strict pull-up.
Which is amazing.
Which is awesome. That was actually one of my really long-term goals and something when I first started my weight loss journey I don't know if I ever really thought I would achieve, so to be able to is bananas.
Yeah, that's amazing. I guess the last question I have is, you know, you kind of alluded to this earlier. The nutrition coaching program, the idea behind it is teach a person how to fish. Like, make it so that once you're done, you can do it sustainably. What do you think, now that you're basically at the end point here, what do you think about being able to do something like this long term?
Oh,
in terms of eating healthy.
Yeah, I honestly, especially because I actually like doing the meal prep. I feel like it gives me more time to myself in the evenings when I do finish work and when I do take that time off. And so the meal prep is something I would continue to do. As far as me craving certain foods, early on when I was doing the Whole30, I found a way to make a healthier version of a Greek moussaka. And so it's a matter of just taking the time to find a recipe that fits within your parameters, and when you make it, you're going to have the leftovers. And so I don't see any reason why this should be a problem to maintain. Especially if you're willing to do the meal prep. I understand some people aren't, they need the variety, and in that case, what you do is you get a lot of freezer space.
Right.
And you be able to make a bunch of different meals over the course of a couple weeks maybe, and freeze them and be able to take them out and make a variety so you're not eating the same thing for 3 or 4 days in a row.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I've got to say on my end, I'm super proud of your accomplishments and what you've done. People always ask me like, oh, does this program work? And I'm like, if you do it. Yeah. You know, if you actually follow things, and like probably more so than almost anyone I've ever worked with, it was like, here are the goals for this week. I did them. Here are the goals for this week, like every single week. And then you would like, not just do them, but like smash them out of the park. And we were able to like go deep into macros, and then we were talking about salt at the end, whereas like sometimes, you know, it's harder to get past those first initial goals sometimes. So I think you just did a fantastic job, and it was really a pleasure working with you.
I really enjoyed the experience, and I learned a lot, so I'm really happy with that.
Good, I'm glad.
I also am always going to wind up looking at the ingredient list whenever I buy anything now.
Right, that's the that's the leftover residual from the program.
Yeah, which is it's not a bad thing. It's nice to know what's in your food, and that's why, because I know I said this before we went on camera, but I really like one of the things that Whole30 does, in that if there's something you're really craving, like say potato chips, there's a way for you to make it, and it's not actually that difficult, and you know exactly what's in it. There's not going to be any hydrogenated oil or any of that, because it's going to be, I sliced some potatoes and put olive oil on them and put them in the oven with some salt.
Right.
So.
And you're going to be less likely to make it because it's way more involved than opening up a bag.
Yeah, so for me, that's been one of the actual, I guess this would have gone under the cravings. In terms of cravings, that's kind of the way I'm approaching them in the future, is if it's something that's on the unhealthy side, is there a way for me to make it myself? I'm not going to go out and buy it. I would much rather go and make it myself.
Right. That makes a ton of sense.
That way I know exactly what's in it.
Right. Well, like I said, I'm super proud of your progress. Thank you so much for all your hard work and for all that you've achieved. I think you did a great job. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well.